So welcome to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio. Today is Wednesday, the first day of June, 2022. And our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And press 1, and that puts you in the queue to talk to us. We'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. And while we're waiting on Michael to get dialed in, I'll just say that I have found a couple of glitches in doing the app, and so I'm getting ready to submit for some changes again. So if you have any, please drop me a line at Jeanie, Jeanie, at whyagain.org, and I'll try to get them all in at the same time. And I'll just invite you, you know, the app is free. We offer it for free. We want people to use the tools. And I will also put out there that it does cost us every time that we have to have the technicians to make a change or something. And so if you'd like to support this work, whether it's the app or any of the work, you can go to our website and you click on the donate button. Or if you have a PayPal account, you can send money by friends and family. And you know, we would appreciate any support. Since we're not traveling and we're not doing workshops and intensives live, we are doing them online. We haven't got the next one scheduled yet. If you're interested in doing an online intensive, also note that in an email to me. And we're looking at doing either the Why Again and Why Again Teachers Training or the Laws of Living. One of those two is what we're looking at doing live on Zoom. And so, you know, keep in contact with us. Let us know what your interests are and let us know, you know, if there's something that you're looking for on the website and you can't find it, I can direct you to where it is, or I can make it where it's maybe easier to find. There's always the search bar. If you go to the website, whyagain.org, near the top right corner, you'll see a magnifying glass. And if you click on that, you can put anything in the search bar. So, you know, it's pretty like we have the Kaboris, and then anything related to the Kaboris is listed under that. But if there's something in particular, maybe you're looking for the Beatitudes, you can click the search bar and type in Beatitudes, you know, and it will take you directly to the links where that's mentioned. So, you know, just look around on the website. Click the Start Here button. That's where a lot of the tools can be found, the worksheets, the forgiveness worksheets, all the other worksheets too, if you trying to click at the same time I'm talking. So if you click Start Here, scroll down just a little bit, you'll see there's a poster on forgiveness, and then there's the chapter 24 where Michael walks the character in the book through the worksheet. There's the PowerPoint of the forgiveness, and then there's all the mini versions of the reality management wake-up sheets. And then under that, you'll see special instructional MP3s. That's where we've done worksheets on the radio show. And then you'll see other worksheets. So if you click on that, then it'll drop down, and there are all the other posters and worksheets, you know, whether it's the commitments or the codependency, the Beatitudes, 5 Smooth Stones, Love Exchange, all of those things. If there's something that you're looking for and you can't find it listed there, please let me know, and I'll make sure to add it if it's not really already there. And at this time, I will welcome Michael.
Awesome what you've assembled on the website, sweetheart. The depth and the breadth and the width and the height of the information to back up the ability to truly function with these tools is awesome and amazing. So thank you for all the creative effort and then just the plain old-fashioned gut level work you put in to just put it all out there and make it available. Thank you. And tomorrow is Jeannie's Eternal Day. And so she's getting ready for the next most awesome year of her eternal life. And tomorrow, another journey around the sun begins. So if everyone would just hold her in the space. We're actually going to start to celebrate early today. We're going to head out, find out where we can get her favorite dinner at this point. We've got some phone calls to make. And so if you just send her that, extend to her that presence of love that you are, that this really does become the next most awesome year of her eternal life. And Jeanie, we cherish you.
Thank you.
You are welcome. And actually this morning we went to a chiropractor here in town. We've been seeing him for a few months. He's really good. And he doesn't know. We've had a couple of minor conversations with him about what we do, but almost no introduction to the work. But it turned out this morning that he had a headache. And Jeanie did a little work on him in her session before I went in, and then I adjusted his neck and relieved some of the pressure. And he went ahead and adjusted me. And I say this by way of, it's often talked about the work involved and what it takes and how much of a challenge it can be and how long it's going to take and all of that. But it was pretty interesting, before he adjusted me, I adjusted his neck and relieved his headache. He ended up with a little bit of pressure in the front of his head. And so when he completed adjusting me, it's like, well, okay, so lay down. Let's do a little more work. And we only had about maybe 6 minutes. Did a little bit of energy field work on him and totally cleared the frontal part of his brain that was creating pain and trauma for him. And about the last 45 seconds, I'm just, seeing this out of the level of willingness makes a difference in terms of how quickly we can go there. And he just got about as excited as a little kid. He's like, whenever I close my eyes, my field of vision is always black. And about the last minute or minute and a half, he said everything just light came in. It was just totally filled with white light. It's like, all right, that's the objective. And, it's about 6 now, he's got a lifetime of work. He's been doing his work. Actually, he told us a few weeks ago that he has to drive all the way to Knoxville, 2 hours away to get a good adjustment. I think he'll give up that story now. But in any event, how quickly can we move from darkness to light? What's the level of willingness? Am I willing to breathe? I was reminded in our conversation as we talked about, I'm working on him and inviting him to breathe, and breath isn't moving too well. Talked about the fact that, in the ancient Aramaic, we're told a story that says the Creator sent out His Spirit. But in Aramaic, it doesn't say that. It says sent out the breath. And you watch people in trauma, and when the breath stops, when the breath is inhibited, it's inhibited in order to, it's like cutting ourselves off from the vitality that moves energy through us. When we don't want to feel what's moving through us, the tendency can be to shut the breath down. So we talked about, in Aramaic, Ruka de Kucha, there's this feminine elemental force in us. It is the breath, and it undoes the effects of our errors and teaches us the truth. Probably, in the idealized state of willingness, there's nothing else you need to know. Everything else is a tool and a mechanism for opening and moving that flow, but ultimately, it's that inner process and that flow that makes correction. Correction of things that you can't figure out or contemplate with your mind. But there's a power in you when you unleash it. What's interesting in the chiropractic field, it's called the innate. In the ancient Aramaic, it's called Ruach HaKodesh. The Greeks called it the Holy Spirit. But there's a power in each and every one of us that when we're willing to turn it over, we'll move what needs to be moved. You know, that story, I've told it so often, but it fits in here again to help to empower the mind to build a more complete structure that supports stepping into the truth fully. But there's that story about this group of people who got lost in a hot, sandy place for 40 years. You know, if you check it out, this hot, sandy place is probably about a 35 square mile area. When you think about it, for a group of people who understand astronomy very well, you don't have to know much. I mean, if you just know the direction the sun's moving, and you get up and follow it east to west, it can't be very long before you're out of a 35 square mile area. So is it about a literal hot, sandy place, a literal desert? I would offer no, not at all. It's about the unconscious. That word desert is a code word for the unconscious. And when there's something in us that we are unconscious of, and it's resonated into activity, then it becomes a filter which filters everything that we see. You know, Paul spoke about it. He says, we see as though through a glass darkly. The mind is a glass. And wherever there are energetic patterns that are off the mark. Again, if you go to the Aramaic language, the word sin is an archery term. It's got nothing to do with evil, all the things the Greeks have put on it. And it certainly has nothing to do with your identity, which many circles want you to claim that as your identity. It simply means if you're on the archery range and you fire at the bullseye and you miss the bullseye, scorekeeper yells sin, you're off the mark. Like, take another shot. And if I'll breathe in the presence of an energy that's off the mark, then I can remove that energy. The average person spends about 40 years in that condition of unconsciousness before they start to wake up and, kind of metaphorically scratch their heads and say, something else going on here. What's this really all about? How did these people get out of the desert? Well, they said the old generation had to die off. And that's been interpreted by the Greeks as everybody in old physical bodies had to physically die. You couldn't take those old ones in with you. No, not at all. The root of the word generation is genari. It means cause. All of the causes held within your structure that would produce results that are off the mark, that are not in harmony with your human life, that are not in harmony with the truth about you, which is that you are made of the actual energy of love. And anything other than that is off the mark. It's sin, and quite literally, it will kill you. If you hold it in tissue, creates an interfering pattern that causes tissue to deteriorate, fall apart, and the result is death. And my offering, I was speaking with this gentleman this morning, it's like energy systems can't die. They're not designed to die. We are an energy system. We are not bodies. We are energy systems. You are not designed to suffer. You are not designed for disease. You are not designed to die. But everybody's doing it, so, it must be so. Well, I invite you to put a huge question mark in front of that idea. What if you were to handle every disintegrative or sin-based energy from the generations in your bloodline? Every sadness, every grief, every rage, every hatred, every fear, every condemnation, every gossip, every slander, vengeance. What if you just dropped all of that? The change in your physiology would be monumental. The change in your health would be monumental. The change in your mental, emotional, and physical prowess would be monumental. And for most people, it's a process that one must engage in. And it's time, I would offer, for us as human beings to wake up to who we are and to begin to function out of that energy that we are made of, to get out of our own desert, to get out of the states of unconsciousness based in hostility and fear, and be restored to the truth. To face anything in you that could drag you down into some form of depression or pain or trauma. Now, if you live in a world where you have had modeled that everybody else is to blame for what's going on inside of you, then by living in a world of blame, you really think somebody else is the reason that energy is moving in you. That's our very definition of denial, is to think that what's moving in me is caused by somebody outside of me. And when I buy that farm, then I deteriorate my mind's ability to accurately develop perceptions that are based in truth. And my mind will show me lies in place of truth. And so a new standard is needed. And the standard we offer is love the conscious active energy that's moving in you. If it's not, then you have work to do. Now, I know you've got 1,000 stories about him and her and them and the other thems, and then still the other thems, and then there's those, and there's these ones and themins. I think that's in the Southern Dictionary, themins. Or was that Ewan's, Jeanie? Ewan's, I guess it was. In any event, it's time to stop talking about how everybody else is the problem in our lives. And to recognize that if I'm feeling an energy that is less than love, I'm feeling it because it's in me. And it's a fairly sharp hop to apply forgiveness, remembering that forgiveness means removal. It does not mean I'm going to let you off the hook because something painful is moving in me. It means that if there's something painful moving in me, I'm going to move inside of myself and remove that energy. I'm going to alleviate my tissue structure of that burden. And I'm going to allow my structure to shift another step closer to being the space where love is the only thing that moves in me. Because that's what you're designed for. That's what I'm designed for. Now, you wouldn't know it by the way the world is functioning these days. All the rage and guilt and grief and suffering. Just you look at the events of the last week or so and the untold suffering for so many people. Can I, side of my suffering, can I put an end to suffering and step into the space where conscious, active, present love is what's moving in me, regardless of what's happening in the world? That's when we're going to see the light. And that, I would offer, is our most natural posture. That's the most natural place for us to go. It's where we're designed to live. So we're glad you're here to be part of the conversation and would love to hear any questions that perhaps arouses in you. Your experience of utilizing the forgiveness tool. And again, as Jeanie said, the worksheets are right there on the website. You can also actively do a worksheet right there on the website and print it off. You can print off any one of a variety of workshops on your own printer, of worksheets on your own printer and for use at home. And or you can go to your app store on your phone, type in the words Heartland, Heartland, one word, Aramaic, Aramaic, forgiveness. Type that in and you're looking at the world's only forgiveness app. And Jeanie's about to take it to the next level. By the way, doing all of this is not cheap. And if you are benefiting from it, we invite you to consider supporting us with a donation. Go to the website, whyagain.org. It's a nice big donate button. Click it. Offer some support. This is one of the vehicles you're using to shift and to change your life, then we invite you to consider from, whatever circumstance you're in financially. I mean, if you are overly, extremely abundant, then consider an overly, extremely abundant donation. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, $1 might be plenty. Whatever works. And or you might choose to take on a project. You might choose to, engage in and assist with something that, to be handled. And we're looking at the possibility perhaps in September of doing a work month at Heartland. And if you're interested in that, we'll be doing work. Normally when we do that, we do workshops during the day. We do still point breathing in the evening. Now, of course, it depends on what's happening with COVID. If COVID's still doing crazy, we won't do that. But it's looking like we might be on the other side of it. So you might put that in the hopper and see if that's something that works for you. And our call-in number, if you're on one of those stations where we can't see you, is 563-999-3581, 563-999-3581. If you call that number, you'll be listening to the show on your phone. And then if you push 1, that will raise a hand in the control panel, and Jeanie will know you want to speak to us. So come speak to us. Come say hello. 563-999-3581. Miss Jeanie, do we have anybody in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room?
No, it is all quiet. So we've got 37 minutes, plenty of time. Press 1.
Any questions from the app for those who are just perhaps starting to use the app or haven't downloaded it yet? When you open the app, every page, one of the recent improvements Jeanie made to it was every page has got a button that you can just click and write questions. So if you're in step 3 or step 5 or step 7 in the worksheet and something doesn't make sense, click the button, put your question in, and hit send. We'll receive it. We'll answer it on the radio show. Jeanie will send you back an email that says, here's where your question was answered at, in the 22nd minute of, hour 2 on such and such date. So we're here to be as much support as we can possibly be. To hear your voice, to hear what's happening for you, what's of interest, what's the block, what's the question, which tool are you using? Is there any way we can assist you in being more proficient at using the tools that you have? And of course, we're offering a whole cadre of tools here, and those tools are certainly here to complement whatever you've already got in your life that's working. The specific tool of first century Aramaic forgiveness I've never seen anywhere else on the planet. that you can find what it is and how to use it other than this work. And that's one of the reasons we're committed to giving it away and making it available. So push one, let's have a conversation. What's on your mind? We could sing a song about this and echoing in the sounds of silence.
Nobody has a question. Everybody's satisfied and happy and has everything answered and everything in order. You don't need assistance with anything.
Well, my thoughts, sweetie, seeing as how it is your eternal day.
A hand just went up.
Oh, okay.
760.
Awesome. I'd much rather have a conversation than...
I think it's Ann.
Yes, it is.
Welcome, young lady. How are you?
Good. I was trying to remember the question that I had yesterday, and I had to leave, the show, and so I'm listening to the silence, and I'm going, okay, I need to think about it. What was it I was going to ask? I wondered if you would talk about the addiction that I have had has been TV. And when you were going through, I can't remember if it was what day it was, but you were talking about, the different parts of alcohol and drug addiction. And I'm finding the same issues with just television. And I'm just wondering how the energy, because we talk about energy a lot, how that plays into it. So it's not inside my body like alcohol or drugs are taking effect on the physical body, but it seems to be the energy. I had success, and then I, like some of those that are in 12 steps say, and you've mentioned, somebody that's been clean for 30 years and then, goes off and starts all over again. Well, I had a couple of those episodes after I dealt with no TV for 40 days. And it was almost like, okay, I was being reminded why I needed to get off of TV, because it takes away from the time of spiritual work and other things that I need to do. But is there an energy component to that? I guess that's going back to my question.
My take, from what I hear you saying, is that it's mostly about distraction, about distracting yourself. If I can focus on something out there, and of course anything can act as addiction, and in this work we define addiction as the use of any person, place, circumstance, substance, or activity in order to, 1, avoid hearing and following your highest guidance, and 2, avoid feeling and dealing with what's real for you. And it sounds like perhaps the television set is a way that you just distract yourself so that you don't have to look within. Many people, you look at how our whole culture is so entertainment oriented. It's all about, the next fix. So you go to the loud bar and there are 5 televisions playing. There's a band and a jukebox playing, and it's just mass distraction. I don't have to think. I don't have to feel if I'm distracted. And so perhaps a mind shifter would be useful.
Yeah, the distraction.
Like a mind shifter to work with?
Yes, certainly.
Okay, it's safe and healing.
Of course. Okay.
For me to release all distraction and spend time alone. Spend time alone in my own mind.
In my own mind. And this would probably go on the right, for those who don't know about mind shifters, this would go on the right-hand side of the page. I wrote all in capital letters. So all distraction. I have to say the way of mastery is helping with the time alone in my own mind, so it is getting better. I'm better at, when I fell off, quote unquote, fell off the wagon, to recognize that I can stay out of condemnation for myself, because that would have been my old pattern. So in that sense, that felt good to see that, oh, wait, just get right back on, to not using it. So, and I think what the other thing that the way of mastery was talking about is asking, ask to be shown. Dr. Tim talks about that, right? Ask to be shown, and it's part of the wake-up sheet as well, worksheet, wake-up sheet. Ask to be shown, just asking first, hey, wait, am I okay to even turn the TV on? I mean, I check the weather sometimes if I don't get a clear thing on the phone if I'm going to go out and about. Because in Florida, things can change in a moment's notice. So I'm getting, I was able to stay out of the condemnation. So that's improvement. Learning to look at, okay, what have I gotten better at, and not staying in a pit because, I was going to beat myself up or something. So that's great. But then getting back on track, it's right. It's still a distraction. It was when I was a child, and I dealt with that because I think when my dad wasn't around anymore, when my mom got divorced, I watched a lot of television. But I can't, that's an excuse, I mean, I did a wake-up sheet on that, and I understand that, going back to childhood. And then I was using my husband as an excuse, but now I have no excuses left. Well, no, that's not true, right? I mean, I could use any distraction as an excuse.
You can make up any number of them, right?
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I need to do this. I need to do this one. Because I'm liking the time alone, just time alone. Like I'll put on the spa music or smooth jazz. It brings up the soothingness in me and the joy in me. To release all distraction. Yeah, there's too many more. Okay. All of that goes on the right-hand side. I got it. That's good.
That's it.
Yeah, and I'm going to re-listen to what the definition was, because those two things are definitely, yes. I needed to hear that again. Thank you.
And can I, Michael, if you would explain a little more, there's nothing wrong with watching television. I mean, we watch the news, and we actually use movies as a relaxation.
Right.
I think you have to ask yourself why you're watching TV. Is it really a distraction you're using, or I'm not sure what I'm trying to say, but it's.
No, I get it. The vibrations are there.
Clear, sweetie.
Because when I had a sign a year, the last time I tried it. Well, this time it worked because I gave it up for Lent and into the TV part of it. So I think where the stronger, and I stay off the TV part of it, where the stronger pull is on the videos. And so I got rid of all the ones that were not, that were not healthy. And then I'm reading through the Bible, and again, I've never read the Bible at all, completely front to back. So that's where I enjoy spending that time. So it's overcoming that. So I think doing this mind shifter will see what other stuff is distracting me that I'm not, what's the word, that I'm burying or I'm denying. Oh, there's the word.
So the other aspect would be to begin an inquiry as to what it is that you're avoiding. Are you doing this just out of habit? Or is there something in there that you think is chasing you and you feel like you need to stay a step ahead of it? I'd go into an inquiry just, asking inside and sitting with, over a period of time, sitting with whatever answers come. And, you may find that there's an event that you haven't resolved that, when you allow yourself alone time, you start to get close enough to, and for some reason feel like you can't handle it. And when you start to acknowledge that and recognize that whatever it's about, you can handle it, then you're more likely to allow yourself contact with that. And as you deepen your contact with whatever it is that, if you're running from something internal, as you allow yourself to deepen your contact with it, you'll eradicate whatever it is, and, that'll be the end of the need to escape from it.
Right, because that is more of an escape than, And in replacing it with healthy things, like if I go sit out on the back porch and, watch the birds at dusk or something, I'm starting to get there where I'm putting something in its place. So, you know what? I just thought, though, that's something to do with the evening. It's not an issue in the daytime. So, and you were just talking about that, the dark and the light. Okay. So there's something about the dark time when the sun goes down that it's much harder. Okay. All right. Okay, I have plenty of food for thought and the mind shifter.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
All right, young lady, we appreciate you.
Blessings, guys.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
You too. Okay. Bye-bye.
And we have another hand up.
Awesome.
And your Darth Vader breathing.
Well, I just ordered, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they were telling me how this microphone, it sounds like, I'm huffing and puffing in it, but I guess it just happens to be attuned to my breath, and so I've just have been searching for and looking for a kind of a muffler for it, because I guess it's an ultra-sensitive microphone, but my apology.
Okay. Next caller is 770. I think this is Mike Petty. Hey.
Hi,
You're on the air.
This is Michael. How are you?
Hey, welcome, young man. Delighted to hear your voice. How do you be?
Good to be here. Good, thank you. How y'all doing?
We're rocking. We are rocking, getting ready for birthday celebration, Eternal Day celebration.
Yes, happy Eternal Day, Jeanie.
Thank you.
Very nice. Very nice.
Ken, I get
Michael,
to celebrate
ready for
too.
A question? That's right.
We're ready to rock. Go for it, sir.
All right. Well, I have been reading your book, wonderfully amazed, and I had a question come back to my mind that I've had before. I even met you some time ago, or reading the book, and it's this. As I look back on history, I see at least several entities that have taught, at least seemingly to me, what Yahshua has taught. And my question would be, how is it that the others didn't get put into a book called the Holy Bible, but Yahshua's did, when their teachings seem to overlap or be the same in some places, and yet we see what seems to be the Bible, Yahshua promoted to maybe a higher level, at least what I'm perceiving. So any thoughts on that? I'd like to hear what you have to say, please.
Sure. Well, it's interesting, Michael, that at least 5 of the world's major what are called religions came out of the Aramaic language. And Jeanie and I were actually, let's see now, how many years ago is this? Probably 10 years ago. We decided to do an international tour. We did, I think it was 7 different countries, one winter season. And we started out in Sweden, and then we went to Holland, and then we went to Rome, Italy. And somewhere in there, I started to realize that everything that I was hearing was babble. You know, here we are in Sweden, and I watch this fellow and his lips move, which means air's passing over a little flap of skin in his throat, and that causes air molecules to move. We call them sounds. And there were people who, you know, I looked at his mouth moving and didn't mean anything to me, but there were people who ascribed meaning to that, and somehow it made sense to them. And then, I think it was about the time we got to Rome, it struck me, oh my God, this is all babble. This is all stuff somebody made up in their brain, made up sounds, and other people agreed to those sounds and agreed to give them meanings, or at least give them similar meanings. And so there appears to be a level of communication. And, you know, here I speak English, and I make this little flap of skin move, and people seem to understand what I say, if they have brain cells similar to mine. But all of those languages were made up in people's heads. Aramaic is different. The Aramaic language, if you look at the structure of the letters in the Aramaic language, they are actually 3D, the 3D shadow that the different elements in the atomic table of the elements would cast if we were to put a light on them and get a 3D shadow. So the shape of the letters is actually based in the atomic creation. It's the only language that does that. And I suspect that because that's true, it wasn't just something that, you know, this person or that person or this group of people or that group of people made up, that there's something about that. And then when I realized that Baha'u'llah of the Baha'i faith spoke Aramaic, Yeshua spoke Aramaic, Abraham spoke Aramaic, Zoroaster spoke Aramaic, it's suspected that the Buddha spoke Aramaic. Why did these things become, and why are they still around as quote-unquote world religions? I think that they're reflective of the actual physics of creation. And Yeshua became the subject of, you know, one aspect of those Aramaic teachings, but Muhammad has his own book that people could ask the same question as you asked about Muhammad, because the Quran was written in Aramaic, spoken, thought, taught in Aramaic, and is. And from what my work over the last 40 years specifically with the Aramaic is this language is a reflection of the actuality rather than perceptual constructs, realities made up in people's heads. And it works. Now, if you look at the teaching, if you go back into the Aramaic, now you take the Greek and, you know, as we talked about the other day, what are we up to? Something like 32,000 sects of so-called Christianity, 32,000 different dogmas that say, no, this is it, this is it, this is it, this is it, this is it. But in Aramaic, I believe each of those teachings with their own scriptures are hanging around because they work. Now, they've become bastardized in many cases when they've been translated. A whole lot's lost in translation. But in their origins, they were reflective of the actuality of the creation rather than reflective of realities in individuals' minds. And they tend to hang around because they simply work. If one engages in the understanding that comes from the Aramaic, they tend to shift out of mental consciousness. One of my favorite tongue-in-cheek lines is, to heal, you've got to be out of your mind. And we've got to step back into the truth of who we are. And my take is that each of those teachers gave people a logical set of tools for returning to the truth of who they are, and they work. Does that address your question? Does that get somewhere in the direction of where you want to go?
Yes, I thank you. You brought some points that got me thinking even more. So is it true to say that the Torah, the Quran, you may have said that, I'm just trying to clarify in my mind, that they were written originally in Aramaic also?
Thought, spoken, and written in Aramaic, yes.
Thought, spoken, and written.
And therefore,
wow.
My take is reflective of the actuality of the creation. That's why they've hung around. I mean, there have been lots of other, preachers and teachers and theologians and, we don't get to see much of what they did because it didn't work. And if it doesn't work, people die. If you go back to Yeshua, we listen to people with their dogmas and their doctrines and the 32,000 different sects, and it's, oh no, this is the true doctrine. This is, you got to have that. It's like, Yeshua never said, I come to bring you doctrine and dogma. He said, I come to bring you life. And life, the best definition I've been able to come up with for life is the flow of love through a cell. And because that language reflects the actuality of what's going on in the cell, each of those teachers in their own context came forward out of the Aramaic with, here's how you have life. And if you give people life, if you have people who are dead, if you have people who live in rage and guilt and grief and hate and fear, which there's plenty of it in the history of all of that, and you give people a pathway out of death into life, they tend to write about it, they tend to expand it, and it tends to hang around for a long time. So I hear Yeshua with a singular purpose. I come to bring you life and bring it more abundantly. And to me, that communicates, hey, folks, I've discovered what death is. Remember one of my followers said he was really excited about doing what I'm doing and he was going to follow me, but he was going to go bury his parents first. And I said to him, let the dead bury the dead. Most people are already spiritually dead. And so if someone has the mechanism, the tools, the instructions to bring one back to life, to actually living as our created essence, and the best definition I've been able to find for what is human life is just hold a newborn. Think about the first time you held your first child, or one of those grandbabies, the first time you held them, and tap into the essence of that newborn, and you've got life, and it's love. It's what it is. And our culture, this culture in particular, my take is, has specialized in learning how to beat the life out of us, literally to beat the love out of us, and teach us that hostility and fear and conflict and war and money and stuff is going to make our lives fulfilled. And the people who were living that, a couple thousand years ago in Yeshua's presence, they said, well, what do we have to do? And he gave them the insight. He handed them an answer, and literally half of his audience got up and said, "Too hard a saying," and they left and never came back.
Mm-hmm.
My take is they're the people that made up this easy theology of, well, you just call on his name and then you don't have to actually do anything because there's nothing you can do anyway. You're just a helpless, hopeless sinner. That's the Greek, that's the Greek death story that's come out of it, where he offered life. And if we've got something that accurately brings us forward into life, it's going to tend to hang around. And so it has out of, and not that anybody, and certainly not everybody's practicing any of them accurately. You look at the fundamental hatred that comes out of so many of the religions, quote-unquote religions, and in their origins, I don't see them as religions. It's just, here's how it works, folks. Men turned it into a religion and a way to control others rather than, here are the tools to liberty, here are the tools to regain the flow of love through your cellular structure and actually live as you're designed to live.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Beautiful. Michael, this is something I never looked at personally back in history. From your knowledge, was there ever a language quite like Aramaic back earlier in time, before the Aramaic language?
There is no language I know of that is founded in the actual physics of the creation. There's no other language that I know of.
That is amazing. Amazing. Yes,
and basically,
well,
my background, and I don't even know if I've shared this with you, is in electronics, so the side studying physics, and in that world, if you were designing or building or repairing a piece of electronic equipment, it really didn't matter a darn what your philosophy was. The thing had to work when you come off the other end of the bench. Mm-hmm. And so that's something that very early was ingrained in me. And my pursuit and my study has been, what is it that works and how can we put it into a format that could be handed to someone else so they don't have to go out and spend 40 years trying to figure it out? How can we put it into a format that we can say, okay, here it is. Here's a worksheet. I mean, literally, if you look at the worksheet process, the forgiveness process, it took me 35 years working with that full time to understand what it was, why it worked, and how it worked. What I can now explain to you in 5 minutes took me 35 years full time. And I'm talking full time. I mean, when I do the Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop, I usually do it now in about 3 hours. But there was a time where it was a good full 4-hour workshop. And there are times where I've taught that 4-hour workshop 3 times in one day. That's how full-time I worked with it. Mm-hmm. And to understand what Yeshua in his Aramaic context was telling us so that I could say it in English and comprehend it with my brain literally took me 35 years. And I'm talking about full-time 35 years of work. Most people aren't going to do that. And so people get caught in this dogma and that doctrine, and this dogma, and this belief and that belief, and most of it's just pure BS, pure belief systems. Mm-hmm. As opposed to, when I go back, there are so many points that come through in the Aramaic understanding that are just such genius pieces of information. Like, where can you find this anywhere else? It doesn't exist. There's a particular passage where they say to Yeshua, what's most important in the law? And of course, the Greeks taught us, and the brain cells most people have, when somebody's flap of skin in their throat resonates the brain cells, set the air molecules in motion, they hit the eardrum that resonate the word law, they think, the king, the rule of a superior. Well, anybody who believes that just went off on a rabbit trail and is lost. I mean, the rest of their pursuit is a waste of time, because that word law in Aramaic, in the physiology of the creation, the physics of the creation, has nothing to do with the rule of a superior. It's a word that represents how things work. So they say to him, you know, how do we get to have a human life? How does this work? What's most important in how it works? And the Greeks tell us that he said you got to love God and you got to love your neighbor as yourself. And that's just pure balderdash. He never said anything that even resembles that. You go back to the Aramaic and he informs us. And there's actually one other place, and I've been working with it a little bit. I've got a lot on my plate, and it's another whole study. But there's a part of the brain called the angular gyrus. And medicine's starting to discuss this. And I suspect that probably the word angular gyrus could be substituted for the Aramaic word that he used. And the Aramaic word he used was the word Rakhma. He didn't say love your neighbor. He didn't say love God. He didn't say anything about doing to them like you do yourself. You know, sadly and unfortunately, that's what most people are doing. They're quote unquote loving God and neighbor the way they do themselves. And this self-hatred is so extreme that the world is crazy. But what he said is, in essence, long form. We could open that package up, the word Rakhma, and it would say, there's a filter in the frontal lobes of your brain, and when it is active in you, it is the gateway to which human life enters your human form. If it's closed, and it's closed by hostility or fear, then there is no human life in you. There's only a self that pretends to be a self that isn't. It's the self that he said, Yeshua said, that self's got to die. And most people's whole conversation is based out of that self. So he says there's a gateway there, and that gateway secondarily acts as a filter that inhibits negative and destructive intentions from being active in your mind and being the control over the perceptual output of your mind. Now, find that piece of it. I mean, that's when you really unpack that and you understand that, this is how you get to be human. It's like, where do you find that piece of information anywhere else on the planet? And, you know, most people are out there and, yeah, you got to love your neighbor. Well, that's about one of the stupidest instructions I've ever heard of, if you understand how the mind works. If you understand the mind works through resonance, and if somebody has rage and fear and guilt and grief and hatred and vengeance in them, then they are energy fields that draw people to do things that will resonate their rage and guilt and grief and vengeance. And so if my instruction has been I have to love you, which, you know, in the culture that word's become approve of you, and you resonate my hate and fear and rage and guilt and grief, well, I just guaranteed failure and guilt and more guilt when I told somebody to love their neighbor. When I told them that there's a filter in the frontal lobes of your brain that will allow you to function as a human being, and love will enter your form through that gateway, and it will keep the perceptual constructs of your mind on track with love. Now there's something you can work with. He says that's first law. I mean, without that piece of information, what hope is there? Where do you go with that? You end up with 32,000 sects of Christianity all ready to slit everybody else's throat for love. It's crazy. And I could, you know, we could go through, and unfortunately we're down to the last minute or so maybe we can continue this conversation next show. But I could go through a dozen different words with the same import that Yeshua gave us in the Aramaic, and they don't appear anywhere. It's nowhere.
That is amazing.
Except in the Aramaic.
So this filter in the brain you're speaking of is what you termed the angular gyrus.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying the only other place you'll hear a conversation that approximates it is in the medical world, where they're researching that, and I'm suspecting that they're one and the same because of the similarities in impact I'm not proclaiming that as knowledge. I'm just proclaiming that as a suspicion of mine from what I've studied from the Aramaic. And we've only got about 10 seconds. The show's going to cut us off, so we'll just complete. We won't do the outro, and it'll cut us off when it does. So I'm just saying that I'm suspecting that that's what we're talking about, that they tie in. And yes, there is another place. They're starting to discover it, and they're discovering that it's tied to love and that it changes everything. And Yeshua says that's the most important thing to human existence in his Aramaic language. That's what he tells us. But you can't, if he sat in most circles today where they present, in the Western world, what are ostensibly his ideas, he'd say it's all Greek to me. So what we're looking to do is restore those original ideas, those original concepts, and make them workable, and hand people the tools to say, okay, here, you don't spend 35 years to get this, and then say, here it is, take it, use it, put it to work. And you know what the last thing most people want to do is use it and put it to work? Oh, they want to talk about it, but doing it? Oh, no, I'm too busy is the number one piece of feedback. Oh, no, I got too much on my... No, I'm too busy. That's the number one drug in the world, busyness.